the smile of a man who took pleasure in others' suffering. A man who, without remorse, tortured and betrayed his own countrymen during the Second World War. 5 minutes before his execution, he looked the priest in the eyes and said, "I'm a bit worried I might be coming down with a cold. No fear, no regret, just a joke, right up to the final second." This is the story of Henry Rinnan, Norway's most hated man. The short shoemaker's son from Levanger would grow up to become one of the most feared and despised figures in Norwegian history. Henry Oliver Rinnan was born in 1915, the eldest of 9 children. The family lived modestly. They didn't have much, but they managed. Even as a boy, Henry stood out. Not for anything good, but for his size. Barely 1.6 meters tall as an adult, he was mocked, ignored, and left out. Those who knew him later said this is where it all began, the seed of a deep hatred, a burning resentment towards society and the people around him. He grew up with a desperate need to be seen, to be respected, maybe even feared. At 21, he married Clara and tried to live an ordinary life, but his ambitions were larger than reality. He failed in job after job and soon began to feel that the world was against him. The little boy who had once been bullied now dreamed of power, of becoming somebody, and soon he would find his opportunity. When the Soviet Union attacked Finland in 1939 and the Winter War broke out, Norwegian men were encouraged to volunteer to help their neighbour. Those who went were celebrated as heroes, and it was that hero status that caught Henry Rinnan's attention. He saw his chance to become someone, admired, respected, maybe even feared. Rinnan went to Finland to volunteer, but his application was rejected. The reason? Weak physique. Many believed his height had much to do with it. For a man who had spent his life being looked down upon, literally, it was a humiliating defeat. Bitterness took root. Yet there was still a flicker of loyalty in him. When Germany invaded Norway on April 9, 1940, Henry Rinnan volunteered to fight on the Norwegian side. He was arrested twice by the Germans for his resistance, but as the occupation tightened its grip, Rinnan began to see the truth. The Germans were winning, and for a man who craved power and recognition, the choice was simple. He switched sides to the winning side. This was where his descent into evil truly began. In the summer of 1940, Henry Rinnan came into contact with the Gestapo, Hitler's feared secret police. The Gestapo was made up of loyal men and women who made their careers by hunting down anyone who might threaten the German Reich. Resistance members, Jews, socialists, homosexuals. No one was safe. And it was here, in Trondheim, that the short man, 161 centimeters tall, began his new career as a German agent. Rinnan was given a dangerous but cunning assignment. He was to pose as part of the Norwegian resistance, to go undercover as a freedom fighter. He traveled from farm to farm, sought out those fighting against the Germans, asked questions, listened, and built trust. Little did they know that he was secretly noting down names, addresses, and the locations of hidden weapons and radios. The mission was a success. The Gestapo was impressed, and Rinnan had finally found what he had craved all his life: power, respect, and fear. But this was only the beginning. What started as espionage soon turned into something much darker: torture, betrayal, and murder. After his early successes, Rinnan earned the trust of his German superiors. He showed brutal efficiency and a talent for manipulating people. The Gestapo quickly realized they had found a man willing to do the dirty work even they preferred to avoid. In 1941, Henry Rinnan was tasked with building his own network of spies and informants in Trøndelag. He called the group Sonderabteilung Lola, but in Norway they soon became known by another name, Rinnanbanden. Through lies, deceit, and fear, Rinnan and his men infiltrated resistance groups across central Norway. They posed as freedom fighters, gained trust, and persuaded people to reveal the names of friends, relatives, and comrades. Once the Gestapo had enough information, they struck. Arrests came like lightning from a clear sky, and at the center of it all stood Henry Rinnan, smiling. Rinnan established his headquarters at the Bandklosteret in Trondheim. There, Norwegian resistance members were brought in. Many of them had never even held a weapon, but they said the wrong thing to the wrong person. In the basement, Rinnan and his men were waiting. The interrogations were brutal. Torture wasn't the exception, it was the method. Prisoners were beaten, kicked, burned, and mutilated until they confessed, often falsely. Rinnan himself often took part. He was said to have a strange calm about him, even a hint of pleasure, as others screamed in pain. The gang used whips, clubs, and rubber truncheons, and sometimes hung victims from poles before continuing to beat them. Some were tortured with salt rubbed into their wounds, or with glowing iron rods and cigarettes burning their skin. The Gestapo was pleased with Rinnan's results after a string of successful operations. He was especially praised for his incredible memory. Rinnan was described as a brilliant agent, small, charming, and charismatic. By the end of the occupation, Henry Rinnan and his gang had become one of the greatest threats to the Norwegian resistance. He had infiltrated countless groups, and hundreds of resistance members were arrested and tortured because of him. In Trondelag, he was practically untouchable. The resistance in Trondheim and London began discussing assassination, a targeted killing to stop the leaks and save lives. They tried several times to stop him, once by kidnapping, twice by killing, but each attempt failed. Rinnan and his gang continued their atrocities until the very end. The last murder took place just 2 weeks before the war ended, and it was personal. Two former gang members, Maria Rentz and Bjorn Bjornebo, had planned to flee to Sweden to start a new life together. But Rinnan had been in love with Marie, and when he discovered their plans, jealousy took over. He ordered them both shot. The murder took place at Jonsvansveien 46 in Trondheim, less than 2 weeks before liberation. It was Rinnan's final killing. He and his gang had murdered 80 people, imprisoned over 1,000, and tortured hundreds more. His evil had never been about ideology, only ever about power, control, and hate. When Germany capitulated in May 1945, Henry Rinnan tried to flee to Sweden. Together with a few loyal followers, he made his way into the Verdal Mountains, but was caught before reaching the border. On Christmas Eve that same year, he managed to escape. His freedom lasted exactly 1 hour. He was recaptured after seeking out a former resistance member in the middle of Trondheim. His trial began in the spring of 1946 and gripped the entire nation. In court, Rinnan stood calm and arrogant, without a trace of remorse. He remembered every name, every raid, every killing. In the end, he was convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death. 11 of his men were also sentenced to death. Nearly half of all Norwegians executed after the war were from the Rinnan-banden. At 4:05 a.m. on February 1st, 1947, Henry Oliver Rinnan was executed by firing squad at Kristiansand Fortress in Trondheim. He died as he had lived, without remorse. As if the death sentence wasn't enough, Rinnan's own brother was tasked with digging up many of the bodies of the people Henry Rinnan had murdered during the war. To this day, Rinnan's descendants still carry the weight of shame and occasionally face unpleasant situations because of their family name. It's unfortunate. They are innocent. Thank you for watching today's video. See you soon.